How y'all doing? Happy Friday. We are going to continue working with some React Spring and React 3 Fiber. I got it right this time. We made some decent progress last time when we got rid of some of the jank, and we got commands showing up as we would expect. I think we'll probably try switching currently they are accessed via logging in here. They're accessed via chat commands. I think we might try hooking up to the OAuth so we can get. Hey Ryan, good to see you. Have fun lurking. I think we're going to try to hook up that OAuth token so we can get channel point redemptions working. And I'm going to drop that in here real quick before we switch over to the display view. We've got a. Oh, here. I'll switch over to the display view quick, and then we'll find where I actually specified, and then I'll just hide the screen again. So within our, where do we have it? I think we have it in our Twitch inputs. So we're using a library called comfy.js that handles hooking up to both the IRC Twitch chat as well as it does some WebSocket things to grab additional context, part of which is these channel point redemptions. And here we are getting a parameter called password. So if I put that in the URL, the OAuth token, which I hopefully have noted, you can access via this. Then we can start to get some of those channel point redemptions. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide. And then I'm gonna put it in the overlay version. Gotta grab this, and it is a parameter called password, aptly named. There you go. Okay. So now we should be able to okay. So we've got our 3D overlay. And if we start up our server here, we can start looking at what we're working with. So most of this was previously being run off of we were running it off of the channel commands. And we were doing that because it was easy to test it. Channel point redemptions is probably what many of these are going to be dumped under in the future. But it was easiest to just do chat commands as we're building it and testing it. So it's a blank screen because we have events that kick off the visibility state. But if we look at the HTML, you can see there's a canvas. And I think it should work if we do 3D and any type of text. Definitely got the event. Did I miss it? Oh, okay. The thing that we were playing around with towards the end of the stream was the camera. And I wonder if we have changed those to values that are not working anymore. And I think that's the part that we're going to need to dial in here. So we are triggering this to show anytime we have a command come in, and we are on reload, we should be seeing floating text. So that's like the default state, and we are getting it. It's just super small on my cursor right there. So we need to play around with that camera to make sure that we are getting kind of what we're expecting here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So this is the whole canvas. So now this canvas here that's in blue is planned to cover basically this whole overlay. So this is effectively a 1080p square, which you can see by this div that's containing it. And every time we refresh, it should. The idea is that we're going to try to get it to pop up in the middle of this. React 3 fiber. And we need to look at the cameras. And some of this that falls back into React 3 fiber is built on top of three.js. And some of these options start to fall back to the three.js docs. Where would we look for that? I think it's on the canvas. Yep. So the canvas, we were playing around with the camera. Props that go into the default camera. So these are the default ones. Let's go ahead and just drop those in there so we got something to play around with. Near, far. So this is the draw distance. And field of view. We kind of went through the field of view in the last stream. But that's, I'm presuming that's in degrees, and that's sort of the, from the camera base point, that's the field of view is basically that the arc on which the camera can see. So a larger field of view is, you'd be able to see more, but at some point it starts to become distorted. So you get the like fisheye lens look. I think, at least with cameras, I think like the normal human vision field of view is like 210 or something, I think. So we get a horizontal of 135. Okay, so it's only 114. And, oh, wait. I mean, this isn't right. Can I just go with it? Because it's confirming what I believe was right. That's funny. There's like a focus thing too, though. So like I think it is something like that because you have peripherals. but the way it's processing the data, you have a smaller actual like field of view of things that you can focus on. It's that's sort of morbid, isn't it? I don't know. Humans have slightly over 210-degree forward-facing horizontal arc without eye movements. And the reason this is also interesting, kind of a slight tangent here, when you start talking about things like VR, we're only at like, maybe we're pushing up into that. Best field of vision or field of view for VR. Oh, that's interesting. I thought they were up into like 180s for some of the fancier headsets. Maybe not though. But I think that 200 is specifically like, I mean, this makes it look like, oh, okay, field of vision both eyes. It specifically says both eyes here. I think it is something like per eye in the hundreds, whatever that. Close, go away, back. Yeah, that's a thing. I think it's 100 like per eye, but like this seems. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. View horizontally. Oh, okay. So they're saying they're splitting them up. That's what it is. Yeah. So they're saying your binocular, and I'm not going to know these terms very well, but your binocular field of vision is 120. And this is where they're getting that number from. If you're including your peripheral vision, you add an extra 60 or 70, which is how we get up to that 200 something. And obviously, it's going to be dependent on the person. Long story short, though, you can think of your eye as like the camera, and the number that we're putting in for this field of view, I keep saying field of vision. The field of view determines how much of the scene is going to be visible. And then there's this near and far value is going to determine basically the cutoff. Things that are closer than 0.1 or further than 1,000, whatever this unit is, are not going to be drawn, and that's sort of a resource. Like once something gets far enough out, it's probably at a scale that it's not going to be reasonably visible anyways. So let's not even bother trying to render it. But this position, I think, is the thing that we're going to have to play around with a little bit here. And I'm not sure what. So I don't even know if you can see it on the stream. It is that small. Like it is smaller than my cursor. So we need to figure out why it's doing that and how we need to deal with that. And I think we can adjust this camera. Is there anything that is like is this also a scale thing? So text 3D, and we are giving it a scale here. Scale is coming from this, so we're going from 0 to 1 basically. If we bump it up to like 0 to 5, What are we looking at? And it's still super small. I think that's the same basic camera that we had in before. And I don't know that we've messed around with too much more. Hey, Nikki. We currently have a super, super small 3D text, so it might not actually be visible. Because we are playing around with the camera right now. And I think I had removed the center because that was part of what was creating some of this jank. Is it that? Did I get rid of the center? Yes. It was. I think that center was helping us out a little bit here. No, it's still really small. But the center was trying to force it to adjust, and that was messing up our transition. So we had removed the center. I think we've kept the scale at 0.1. And I believe the only thing we changed was the camera. Not that we actually need that right there. So let's play around with this camera. And we're probably going to want to jump into the docs for... I just realized my music's probably really low, isn't it? Can't let y'all miss out on that synthwave. All right. I think we're going to want to look at this 3 camera. I mean, thank you. No, stop. So there's the orthographic and there's the perspective. Oh, we didn't leave it on. Oh, that's what we changed. So we switched to the orthographic. Still super small. What other camera did we have in there? Or what other option do we have in there? So we turned on orthographic and tone mapping, pixel ratios. I'm honestly not sure what I did to make it this small. And we didn't really change any of our CSS, I don't believe. So let's forget this camera. We had dropped in the orthographic camera, but I didn't quite remember what that was last time, and we didn't have time to like dig into it. Like I was trying to I was trying to figure out how to best explain it. Here, this is helpful. So orthographic, yeah, and there's multiple different times. I think the one that is probably going to be most common is isometric. It's a CSS Z-index camera, the three.js. So we basically have our choice between orthographic or perspective. If you've ever done drawing and point perspective, this is kind of what it's depicting. You draw a point where you want to. That's sort of your horizon perspective, and all of the lines that depict depth angle towards that. And you can get some pretty wild things if you get multiple point perspectives. I think technically the 2-point perspective is the most real, like how a human might see it, because of we've got 2 eyes. So if you're able, that's how with both eyes we are able to judge depth, and it's basically a 2-point perspective, I believe, is if I'm remembering my drawing here. And 1-point perspective is going to be more like how a camera might see something. When we're doing scenes or some types of games, you might see more of the isometric or diametric. So like if you model like a house or some object, showing it in isometric and diametric tends to make it feel more real because it's a single thing with not a whole ton of depth. So even though the perspective isn't quite right, it seems to give you the best view. But the isometric gets weird when you have a lot of depth. So there's not like there's not a right answer to which camera you should use. It's partly stylistic and partly context based on what you're trying to do. So I think for what we're trying to achieve here, I'm probably okay doing a perspective because I think it'll be nice to have our transitions show some depth. And I think that'll be better. I think that'll generally show up better as a perspective. Chris was saying size stays the same on the CSS Z index. Oh, the orthographic is this. The size stays the same on the CSS Z index. Yes. Yep. Got it. Okay, so we want to do, I think we stick with the perspective camera, and we need to figure out what is the camera position the thing that we really want to be modifying here, or is it an issue also with this text node? We did have the text node actually, it was quite large before. So I definitely changed something that made it really small. But I'm not certain what that might be. There is a text size. And I thought we had that set at one point. So text 3D comes from the helper library called Dry. And it has find text options are option to pass. And it has a size in here. So I wonder if it has fallen back. Default is 100? That's huge. Let's go ahead and refresh. I thought we had done something even smaller than that. I'm just gonna like really bump it up and see if we can even get it to show up. It's still really, really small. Okay, so I don't think it has something to do with the size. Let's play around with this camera. Do they have a position? Position. It's a vector 3 representing the object's local position. So I'm not certain how this helper library has a bunch of basically components that we can pull on. I'm not sure how to like designate it, how it shows up in the 3D space. And it doesn't really seem to have anything directly within this text geometry node. So we did have we were doing center, and that definitely I think helped. So like if we make this all be 0, 0, 0, which I think is the default, is that actually going to change anything? It's still real small. And if we bumped this up, I'm guessing this is XYZ. X, Y, Z being the depth. It seems to be pretty much right in the center of the screen. So I think we just want to play with it where the camera is located depth-wise. Did I save it? No, I did not. It doesn't seem to be changing it at all. There's also the controls, and it is spring touch. It is possible that the controls are helping us out too. So we got this frame I think is used elsewhere. I don't think we're actually using it because we have commented it out. So we're just looking at the text layer. So why would it get so small? We might not actually need this precision anymore. So that was something that they had suggested might be contributing to some of the jank. But I think we've decided that it was the center component that was shifting it. I'm not expecting that to do anything, but so if we just like way bump this up, are we gonna get any change at all? It is still very small. Let's double check that we don't have something going on funny with the canvas, I guess. So the canvas is supposedly 1920 by 1080. Classes canvas. And we're plugging in from the text layer. So we're setting the canvas height to the div height that it's contained within. I don't think float is actually doing anything here. And we basically have this animated mesh, which is the three.js stuff with this text node. So if we would just drop in a second text node that's outside of this mesh, you can kind of see it. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it now. You see it? It's like a pixel. It's there. It's moving. But clearly we've got something going on with this. Now if I take it out of the float, it's still there. Gosh, that is so small. I'm gonna bump up the field of view slightly. I don't think this is doing anything to it. And I'm not sure what these units are. I'm assuming these are like pixels. I don't know what other unit that they would actually use there. It's still super small. That is wild. Well, this is confusing. Mesh ref. Is there anything else that we could throw in to sort of give us a bit of a gut check here? So like if we throw in a sphere, and we'll have to add an sphere. It would be really nice if there was, like I'm used to viewing, like in the case of SVG, you can see all of the elements and you can like click on them within the DOM. And that helps to see where their position is. That's definitely something that I feel like I miss when I'm working with Canvas. Because this is in there, I believe, but it's possible it might just not be visible. We're gonna put the normal mesh on there. I think I was having troubles with the basic mesh. And I mean, there's things there. They're just so small. Okay. what else would be causing that to happen? We've got our main div, which pulls in the text layer. That's setting a canvas. And we've got useSpring hooked up to it. So if we like completely take out the animated mesh, and we just focus on the sphere, okay. I thought it was a cache. Is this? Okay, so it's the full. All right, we can see the full thing. I mean, I think it was still actually using our text 3D because I thought I saw it. But I don't know that we're getting it anymore. Positional audio sounds pretty interesting. There's definitely things I want to play around with in here. Perspective camera. Let's look at the. As we've been playing around with the camera, did we whoops on the canvas? We need to give it a light. So, I mean, we don't have to give the canvas anything. We do want to give it the class name. Sphere buffer geometry at mesh color. I wonder if this will just work. So no light. Interesting. Now if we drop in the sphere again, just watch, it's all gonna just start working. And I'm not gonna know why, and it's gonna be very frustrating. I'm just gonna drop that in and see. Oh, we don't have the animated mesh in there. Yes. Was it struggling with us setting the camera? Is that what was going on here? What? I don't know. Okay. So it's clearly coming in and out now. Was it setting the camera? Well, were we blitzing some settings or something? I mean, we had the camera set for a while. Did we get caught by the cache again? Is this a cache thing? All right, well, let's make sure that it's centered. All right, I'm gonna make this. Okay. So it's not centered. So now we have, if it's coming in, it's scaling from 0 to 1, 0 to 5. Let's bump that back to 1 now, because we definitely don't need it that big. Okay, no, that seems more reasonable, and it's about in the middle, I think. I'm assuming we can do negatives here. We're rotating around. We're not. Wait, are we? I wish it would say what values we were changing with this camera vector. I think we're actually rotating around the origin. Let's see, position. A vector 3 representing the object's local position. So something that I've seen with cameras is there's an XYZ for the camera itself, and that determines where it's positioned in space. And then there's how do I normally see that designated? I guess there's an XYZ for the camera, and there's an XYZ for the point that camera is looking at, and that determines it's like rotation. So like if it's looking here and the camera's here, it's looking at that point. And then you adjust the field of view and the draw distance, which gives you more or less items within that box. So we're sort of cutting like a shape of viewable area. But the position of the camera is a vec3, so it only gives us 3 values. Okay, so there is a rotation. So I think it is how it is rotated in space. Or I think position is how it's located in space. The object's local scale. Oh, this is the camera, right? Object 3D. I guess this is just in general. In a camera. Cameras. Perspective camera. So where's the position? Focus, field of view, near. So there's a zoom factor of the camera. So I think a camera is considered a 3D object, and we can give it a position. And then we can set the rotation, I'm guessing, as well. Rotation. Local rotation in radians. And how is that? specified. Like what kind of rotation? So there's we have XYZ. This is kind of helpful to look at when we're thinking about it. We have X, Y, and Z. That's kind of our coordinate system. And that's one of the types of ways you can determine where a thing is located in 3D space. And then when we're thinking about rotation, there's ways we can designate how it's rotating. Because if you've got like, here, let's grab something that's more, I've got a random hockey book here. So if we presume that the origin of this thing is in the center of the puck, and when we're setting the XYZ coordinates, that's determining this movement. When we set a rotation, we can also determine if it's rotating this way, which is going to appear not quite the same, but like this is we got markings on this one. Yep. There's markings on the puck. So you'd be able to see rotation based on marking, in this case, the markings on this hockey puck. So we can set a rotation this way. We can set a rotation this way and this way. So this would be, depending on how our coordinate system's set up, this might be the rotation about the y, or if x is this way, rotation around the x might be this. If y is this, rotation around the y might be this. And if z is depth, rotation around that might be this. I need like a whole bunch of pencils. So you can actually then specify multiple rotations. In general, when you're specifying things in 3D space, we'll have to figure out how React 3 Fiber is handling it. But you could specify both in X rotation and a Y rotation to get it sort of at multiple angles. So that's what I'm trying to determine now, because we can, if we have a space for a camera, or a point in space for a camera, we then I'm trying to understand how it's dictating the rotation of the camera and what it's pointing at. And it looks like everything. So if we've got a camera, see the base 3D object class for common properties. So a camera is an object 3D. A camera then has or inherits the property of position. And that's going to determine where it is sitting in space. It also has a rotation. I want a perspective camera. Focus, interesting. So this starts to get into camera settings, basically. So like an actual like film camera or something. You specify near and far, and that's the like cutoff. Anything outside of that, near and far. Anything within there is going to be drawn, anything outside is not drawn. But then you can also set a focus, and that focus can either be like at a point and everything outside of that like zone is blurry, or you can expand it. And that's in photography and video, that's referred to as the f-stop, which stands for, I don't know what f-stop stands for, to be honest. I don't know, but that determines when you have a lower f-stop, your depth of field is lower, which means anything outside of the thing you're focusing on is going to be very blurry. And that's how, like, when you're watching somebody on video and you get that nice bokeh effect, the blurry background, that's because it is a low depth of field. F-stop is the amount of light. Yep. And it's f-stop determines the aperture of the camera lens, which then dictates the focus. I start to get fuzzy. Like, I know the f-stop drives the depth of field, but how they kind of interact, I start to get fuzzy on. I'm assuming that's what the focus is here. Because they say depth of field effects, but I'm not certain. So a lower f-stop gives you a larger aperture, which lets in more light. And then somehow, things that I don't know off the top of my head, it makes the background blurry. I don't know what f-stop, like the phrase f-stop, like what does that stand for? I don't know what that is either. All right, so I think we've decided that focus is for 2 cameras. Yeah, I guess they do specifically say stereo camera. And it's a number. It's a single number. Stereoscopy and depth of field effects. I guess VR stuff? Yeah, I'm not sure. But I think the things that we care about here specifically are the, where are we? We're in the perspective camera right now. We care about the, I don't think really anything here. Oh, interesting. There's an aspect ratio for the camera too. So we care about the position and the rotation. So I think in changing, we're going to take out the float here just so we get a steady thing. And I'm also going to bump up the bumping up the delay isn't going to do what I want. Let's take off the animated mesh so we can just focus specifically on the on our text in question. So right now it's rotated slightly. And if we switch this to 0, we're kind of like straight on. So I'm presuming like the origin of the text is basically the top left. And you can see as we go out from that origin, we're starting to get some of that perspective and seeing some of that depth, especially towards the this G in the floating, in the word floating. And if we set this to 0, that's gonna make it further away. Right? Or is it closer? Closer. Yeah, so the text must be drawn basically at the 0, 0, 0. So 0x, 0y, 0z. And the camera, we're setting it to zoom or to shift away from the text. So if we set it at the camera at 0, 0, 0, the default of the camera is to not draw anything like 0.1 away. So it's just going to straight up not draw it. If we step back, I think the default was 0.1. So if we step back like 0.2, the camera is going to be just slightly away from the text, and I think we'll probably just see a whole bunch of color. Okay, so and it's starting to clip, you can see. So this is, we've got our text, and we're moving back in the camera back or away from it in 3D space so we can see more of the text. And where this text is located, XY, is where we would want to put that is sort of going to be, I mean, I guess we keep the origin to make it manageable, but we'll kind of want to put the text, we want to figure out like the origin of the 3D text and set that to be the center. So when the text comes in, it's basically centered all around the origin there. Now, is there anything, there is this centered or center. So that's HTML, staging. So it seems like we've got some sort of bounding box going on. And when we use this center, it calculates a bounding box and centers its children accordingly. So a bounding box would be when we have a 3D element, a bounding box would be what's the smallest box that we can fit this thing in. And I'm not sure if, I'm assuming that the bounding box is attached to its rotation as well. But with the bounding box, you can use that to help calculate where, so rather than having the origin of this item being in the top left, align top here, we can actually have it in the center. And center is sort of relative too, because there is center based on like how it appears, like what is like a visual center, like what would be part of it that seems like the most middle. But then there's also center of gravity, which, especially when you're getting into more physics engine type stuff, if you've got an object where one side of it is very heavy, the center of gravity might actually not be where the center of the thing is. So if you ever try to like balance a pencil, the center of gravity is pretty much right in the center of the pencil. But if you use like a fork or a spoon, you need to, where you would try to balance it would shift more towards the part of the spoon where you eat with, depending. But assuming that the part of the spoon where you like scoop stuff up is heavier, it shifts the center of gravity towards the heavier part. But center was giving us issues with the React Spring, because it was coming in and then center this. I'm assuming the center would then actually center the thing. So we want the, it's possible that we could look at how center is implemented. Bounding. Whoops. Sitting here playing with my ring on my finger. So we've got some bounding box stuff. Use trail. Oh, this is kind of nifty. So within HTML, there is an API called the intersection observer, and you are able to use that as an event to tell you if an element is actually visible on the screen. And it looks like there's also a similar API that they have in this helper library. Okay, this is kind of interesting. Use camera. Use helper. A hook for a quick way to add helpers to existing nodes. I'm not sure what I would actually use that for. A component using axis line bounding boxes. I don't know if that's something that we actually want. Views used to cut the viewports into segments. So what's those portals? I don't know what this portals thing does. It seems like an additional, I mean, they got a mask in here as well. Mask, render texture. Okay, so it's like a view within a view, I guess. So this would be a portal, I guess. So it's like additional viewports, I think. Okay, so we want let's try Googling and seeing what we can come up with. So React 3 fiber. How do we position elements within this? And I'm assuming that many of these helpers have, so if we go back to this text 3D text. No, it is text 3D text. I just didn't type it right today. You can use any material. Text options are options you'd pass to the text geometry constructor. So text geometry, takes these as inputs, and there's common properties from extrude geometry. And it doesn't seem like there's anything helpful here. Buffer. Okay, so there's a bounding box. The bounding box for the buffer geometry. Default is null. I am wondering if we would need to do some. So there's text 3D. Oh, no. We want to center text. So the other thing that we're going to need to do is we've got this piece of text here. We could shift the camera to center the text. So like we could do. God, stop. Just look at my green screen. So if we go maybe two over, and I'm not sure which way is up and which way is down. So if positive is out, all right, we're also going to do, yes, I see you, three.js coordinate system. How do they determine? Hi, Kitty. How do they determine the direction, or basically the whole coordinate system? And that there's many ways you can describe it and kind of codify it, and not all programs are the same. The handedness, I like that. Okay. And we could also do, there is a helper, and this I think it would actually be helpful to throw on the screen. There is a, okay, Kitty, your tail is not need to be in my face. There are controls. We want some orbit controls. Shape, rounded bounding box, abstractions. Yeah, let's try putting in some orbit controls. I think we had them in there at one point. I believe they're part of this. This might actually give us the, I don't plan to use them, but this might give us the visible coordinate system. No. Wait, where'd it go? Try. Hi. So you have scroll controls, presentation controls. Okay, so if you have camera, you're going to be controlling the camera. Wasn't there I thought there was something that gave you an actual like view of the controls themselves. Maybe it's the transform controls? Rotation, polar. So you can rotate the control options that they have. We set a camera and the orbit controls are moving the camera. So the objects stay where they were placed and we're moving the camera around them. There's also this presentation control. And you can see here they do not turn the camera, but they spin the contents. So that would be you're grabbing the content and the camera stays in its own spot and you're rotating the object. And it seems like this also includes some physics in here too. Come on. Oh, stop. This kitty is being frustrating. So I was hoping it would give us some actual indications on where things are. Oh, there is a perspective camera. Interesting. Staging. Bounds, camera shake, float. What stage? That's kind of cool. So I don't think there's anything that's going to actually show the coordinate system. At least I am not seeing it right now. Presentation controls, map control, flag controls. Okay. So back to this. Three.js render. I'm assuming that this picture here that we're looking at is the coordinate system. So Z is going to be depth. X is, so X positive is actually to the left? Interesting. So then how is the camera? What is this? So GLTF is right-handed coordinate system. I don't see any. And I guess they're converting it in three.js to fit the three.js scene. So what is the So you can show axes. Is there an axis in here? Axis, nope. What about in this? Axes. Hmm. Kind of surprised they don't. Supposedly it is on here. We did stop by this. Kind of surprised they don't have it. Maybe it's on the three.js. Do they have core? No. I feel like this would be one of the first questions I would have is how is their coordinate system laid out? Man, I'm kind of surprised I can't find it. So I just want to see what three.js this is. Okay, so this is the vec3 that we had noticed before. So there's X, Y, and Z properties directly. So 1, 2, and 3. So X, Y, Z is the vec3. So as kind of guessed, now is the, here's the Euler. Okay, so Euler is also 3 properties. And the Euler is the rotation stuff too. So you can see there's an Euler XYZ. So that would be the rotation in, depending on how the coordinate system is, it's this way or whatever the other one I'd enter. This, or this. And this is where the axis of the coordinate system comes into play, because what's positive and negative and what's X, Y, and Z determine a lot of this. Okay. I think these are right. So this is kind of, because this is kind of what we were dealing with. So this is when it says your screen, we were changing the Z value on our camera. So we were shifting it out from the origin. So the origin is the middle. In our text, this top left, I'm presuming the back of it here, top left and back corner of it is being drawn at the origin. And this piece of text draws out from there and extrudes out. So the positives are X, Y, or X, Y, and Z. So on here we would see the X would be going along the word, the Y would be going down. So text, the word text is I mean, I guess it makes sense. It would be weird to draw it the other way. Since the back corner of this, I'm assuming basically right on my cursor, if you can see that, is the origin, and the way it's writing the text, new words are added X positive and Y negative and Z positive. X positive, Y negative, Z positive. So from that origin, we need to move the camera out so we can see everything drawn in the X and the Y and a little bit of Z depth. So now when we're adjusting our camera X and Y, we are shifting it. So if we want to move our camera to make it feel like the center of the text is right in the center of the camera, we would do X positive and Y negative. And we are getting some rotation in there already. So X positive and Y negative. So that's kind of what I did, but the text is actually rotating too. So I think what's happening is the camera itself is moving, but it's always going to be looking at the origin. So if we know that the origin is this top left kind of back corner, because this text is an extrusion, so it has the depth. It's being drawn from the back and it's being extruded out. So as we move that camera around, if we move the camera above the text, it's going to be looking kind of down on it. So I think what we really want is to have the camera set in one spot and we transform the text itself. Now what's our... I think we're going to shift that to 5. So 0, 0 is basically right underneath my cursor. 0, 0 is 0. X positive, Y negative, Z depth. And since you have some perspective, you can see some of that depth when you get further to the edges of our object. And if we're moving the camera, we're just moving the actual position of the camera, and it's still pointing at that 0, 0. So we're like, our camera is like it has a string tied from it to this origin point. And when we move the camera, it's always looking at that origin point. So it's like a I guess that's where the orbit comes from. The helper orbit controls, because you are orbiting the camera around this focal point. So I think what we want to do is all of our adjusting of things is going to happen with that text. So now we need to figure out how we could determine the center of our 3D text. So I think we'll say React 3 dry, bounding box center. So there's this like compute bounding box. So this is specifically GLTF. It says tiny here. Text mesh. Does it say we're using React 3 fiber? Okay, so we can adjust the position of the mesh. And we are using the In this case, we're using the animated mesh. But if we pulled this in, we could say the position is we want it to be, we want to shift it over. So we need to move, if you pull up our coordinate system again, so we have something to point at. It's basically drawn in this spot right here. So we want to shift it over. So we want to go negative X and positive Y would kind of put the center of the text right at our origin. So negative X positive Y, and we're not going to adjust the depth of it at all. I don't know if this animated mesh is going to, okay. So it did shift. It's probably a little bit much. I don't need to only do one unit, whatever the unit is. So you can see here now, even though it's animated, can we, let's see. Let's not actually reverse it. Okay, now it's going to stay. So now you can see our text has shifted, and we're getting some of the depth visible, like the depth is visible in the F now, where it wasn't before. So our center of this text is probably somewhere above this E, maybe, because we're seeing a little bit of depth in the bottom of the E, and the top of the E is pretty flat looking. The G is still, we're still seeing quite a bit of depth in that G over here. So we've essentially translated our text, but we hard coded it, which is not going to work. So we need to, and we can put this in our Spring, so we can zoom it in both by increasing the scale from 0 to 1, so it's full size, and to a different position other than 0, 0, 0. So we need to figure out how to determine what the center of that text is, and then deal with the fact that somebody might actually do something really, let's actually spell it right, I guess. We need to deal with that. We don't want that to happen, so we need to figure out how to do some wrapping. So this might mean another component or something to help us out. But we want to do the equivalent of, like, in text editors, they have a word wrap, and they have, so obviously depending on the editor, they have the option to center the text in the middle too. And at some point, we're probably going to blow out our vertical height too. But I don't think we're going to have enough text where that's actually going to be a real issue. And then at some point too, we can start to reduce the size of the text. So if we have like a whole paragraph of text, we don't need to zoom into 1. We could zoom into like 0.5. So then that way we can see the whole chunk of text. Again, I don't think for this use case that's going to matter, but so we need to see if they've got some sort of helper, or somebody has written something that can help us out here. So it'd be nice not to have to calculate that ourselves. There is potentially a bounding box that we can get, and that might be a good first step. So we want to do position bounding box center. We don't want to move the camera, HTML elements. They've got a bounding box in here, don't they? BB anchor. Let's see how they have implemented this BB anchor. It is also possible that we can use something within three.js as well. Bounding box. Nothing. Box geometry. Box helper. So box helper is the thing that will show basically the bounding box. And it is a world axis aligned. So that's we've got each object has its own potential coordinate system. So you can rotate, or you can move and rotate things relative to reality, their coordinate system, so the origin of that. Or you can, so that would be like, if we think of our solar system as the world axis, the sun, we could consider the sun the origin. So the middle of the sun is origin. When we rotate something like the Earth, we're rotating, the Earth is orbiting around the sun. So that is a rotation around the sun according to the world axis. But the Earth spins as well as it's orbiting around the sun. And that spin is a rotation around its local axis. So that's a rotation around the object axis and a rotation around the world axis. So I think we look and try and see how they've implemented their bounding box stuff. Unfortunately, he's died. BB anchor. So use frame. So this, I guess, calculates the bounding box then, eh? If we have a bounding box, let's look at the storybook. What is our example for that? Text 3D. We don't have any. Not really, no. Okay, so bounding box anchor. So bounding box is with HTML component. Really? Interesting. Oh, that's nifty. So it is drawing an HTML element along the bounding box edges. That's pretty cool. With other mesh. Okay. Yeah, this is super helpful. So we've got a BB anchor. And our isohedron has a BB anchor set. And so we've got an anchor XYZ. Draw bounding box. Where's draw bounding box? Okay, so it's passing it in. Oh, it's just a. Gotcha. Okay. So if there's a ref and we're saying yes draw, then it does the box helper. And box helper is from 3. Okay. So we could actually put this in. We can do, let's go ahead and drop that on here. We can do, and we've got a ref ready, I believe. Use helper. Because we've got the mesh ref. So box helper, we are going to attach to the ref, I'm assuming. And we need box helper, and we need BB anchor. Is there anything else that we need? Oh, we also need to calculate the BB anchor attributes. So we need to do this. So let's try in the children. The React. Okay, got it. And this anchor is determining use helper is not defined. Yep. You are not wrong. Use helper. Interesting. It can only be used within. So we're giving it an HTML component here. And it's drawing it in the children there. Mesh component mesh. So this is our template, and we are giving it an anchor based on the XYZ. And the anchor is determining the BB anchor. It's within the isohedron. Orbit controls auto rotate. That's kind of nifty. I don't know that maybe I don't actually need this BB anchor for the, yeah. Still not working. We're going to take out the BB anchor. Maybe it is just the use helper that we need to see the box. Nope. Use ref. All right, what's it say about the hooks? Uncaught. React 3 fiber hooks can only be used within the canvas component. I mean, we are within the canvas component. I wonder if it's because we don't, like, it basically needs to be within here. So I'm just gonna take that out for right now. I don't know that that's gonna help us out too much. Use helper. Don't need that. Don't need the box helper. I think we do want the BB anchor here though. And let's take a look at the, because the BB anchor, I believe, is going to help us determine what the bounding box is. Because it's going to figure it out and basically divide it by 2. So it's sort of the, like, we have a box, or we have a shape, and around that shape is this box. So we can contain this whole shape within this box, which is called the bounding box. So we could say the bounding box, take the center of the bounding box, and that's basically our origin, or that's the center of it, which for any reasonably symmetric-ish shape, that's going to be fine. And it's not going to be perfect for our text. We might need to play around with that a little bit. But I think it's going to give us a good start. So now how would we use this is the question. BB anchor. Children. A component using that anchor property. You can use this component to change children positioning in regards to the parent's bounding box. So this is used to help determine where the center of, or relative to an element, you can pin children to that element. So I don't know that it's actually going to be helpful for us here, other than potentially wanting to use some of this. So the use frame is going to fire on group props. Where's group props coming? Oh, okay. So the use frame that fires every time or the use frame fires every time there's a new frame. And I believe that is run off of a request animation frame, which fires every once or 60 times a second. So basically like 60 frames per second or 60 FPS. And it's feels similar to like use effect. So it's when you mount a component, you're running a use effect as like a side effect. So this is effectively saying, well, we've got a parent ref. Once it's set, we want to start setting the bounding box. And we're actually changing the, okay. So it's actually changing the position of an object based on the bounding box of the parent. So bounding box size, where's bounding box size? So this must be doing some mutating. So we've got a box. We are setting up a box and we are setting that box based off of the reference to the parent. And then we're getting the bounding box size, and that can help us determine basically where this thing is located in 3D space. So what we can do is, we're not going to be using this directly, but we can do use frame. We want these. So now we've got a bounding box and we have a ref. So we are going to, based on this mesh, get the bounding box sizes. Thanks for the follow. This is going to give us basically the size of this box around it. Glad to have you. Zoli21. So if we go back to our example here, the bounding box is this cyan box around our isohedron, around, well, not ours, but around this isohedron. And it's going to give us the XYZ, basically the height. I mean, it's a little bit funny, but the X, Y, and Z is the sizes. So height and width, depth. And then now that we've got like this value, we don't actually need it here, but this is going to give us those values that allow us to, once this thing comes in, change the position relative to that. So we are going from 0 to a position of this. And we can just start it off as position 0, 0, 0. And basically we end up doing this. Divided by 2. Divided by 2 and 0. And I don't know if we're going to have to mess around with floats here. But this is going to give us, we are this element, the position of its local coordinate system has the text starting off in the top left. And when you draw a box around it, we're going to have our X and our Y and our depth. We don't want to change the depth. We just want to shift it over a little bit. So if we know this and this, and we do the half of it, that's going to kind of give us the center of that box. So now you can see it shifted over, and not quite working. 3 is not defined. We need an import. I'm okay with that. We can always refine later. I think that's a cache. 3 is not defined. Okay, prettier. Go ahead, let me save. It's doing its. Oh, it went away already. Okay. Sometimes prettier seems to get stuck. Okay, use frame is not a function. Yes, we also need to include. Oh, wait, use frame. Is that a dry thing? Use frame. I think that's a. Oh, no. All right, we're just gonna go. Let's just go to the bounding box again. Bounding box anchor. Use frame. It is. Oh, and I put it on React Spring. That would be why it's not working. I don't think I actually need the BB anchor in here anymore either, because we are not using that anchor. We are just ripping some code from it to help us calculate the bounding box. Hooks can only be used in Canvas. So we might need to pull our canvas layer out. So we're actually running this hook. Technically it's in a component that has canvas, but I think it needs to be in a component that's actually within the canvas itself. So it like needs that context available basically. So I think what we end up doing is we pull our canvas out here, and we just put it at. I think we put it at the app level. This frame has its own canvas already, so we're gonna need to adjust that. But we're not worrying about the frame right now. And then we need to move canvas. Just save it, please. I don't need prettier to run on that. All right. Let's see. Classes not defined. Yep. And we can probably tweak this to not actually say text layer anymore, but it's fine. Is there anything else I forgot to move? Orbit controls is not defined. I don't really care about that for right now. There we go. Okay. So, let's go ahead and log out. I'm gonna go ahead and log it out in here. If we put something like a log in the use frame, I think we're gonna get we're going to end up getting it logging 60 times a second, which is probably not what we want. So we're getting 0, 0 when it first starts. But then we do get a bounding box. It's just coming in too late, which is lovely. Now, just out of curiosity, if we delay this, I'm curious if it's going to, like, when does the request animation frame happen? Yeah, so it happens after this spring actually runs. So yes, when you say it doesn't work, what we want to happen is definitely not working. But we are getting a bounding box, so it's something. Now X would be center, it's saying X is 28, Y2 is somewhere here, and Z, because it has some depth, it's basically half of the depth. We're not caring about that, but we definitely do care about this. So how do we deal with that? Because the thing is, we want it to come back in. And it might be fine because it's it's probably not going to work on the first time. But I don't think that's a big deal because it's going to do if I had that turned on, then it will do that. Now, if we change the text, using a command, it should hopefully, if I didn't comment stuff out, come in again. Is my Twitch link not working now? We're still doing it based off of the command and still using 3D text. So like, that should be working. Okay, it did say we're getting, it is connected supposedly. But we're not getting any commands now. Oh. So this was the other thing we ran into. If we go and look at our React tree, we are using context to pass around our Twitch context. We have the app and then we have the canvas. Now that the canvas is at a higher level, anything within that canvas ends up getting dumped in its own like portal or something. I'm not quite sure what they're doing here. Does it actually say? It's doing like its own whole like create route. So like it's got a completely separate route. I think. React Fiber 3. Either way, like this isn't underneath this. So it breaks our context expectations. So I think we end up having to then move this up here and into the app, which isn't exactly what I was hoping to do. So we may need to do multiple canvases and have them layered or something. Which isn't great, but it's something that we can certainly work around. So we hook up to Twitch here. We start getting our events. We got a Twitch Twitch text message. And now we can add this text message as a prop here. And hopefully it is not working again. Use state is not defined. I feel like whatever Parcel is doing, or however I have it hooked up, I don't think it's actually, it's like it's not giving me IDE help. All right, let's try that again. 3D, howdy. Okay, so we're getting an event. It came through. We're doing the text message thing. Set modal state. Let's see. So anytime props change, it's gonna re-render. We might be able to get away with not having that on there. Let's just comment it out for right now. Because it was saying I don't know that error is helpful here. Okay, we got our event, no errors. It's coming in. We don't actually see our text layer though. So when this first loads, we've got a canvas and we've got our text layer with our camera. Oh, wait. Text layer. No, that should be fine. So we've got our canvas. Use frame, use mesh, float. And that. So if we go ahead and do text message. we're gonna actually get a login here. Text layer is undefined. Oh. That's why. Wrong prop. Okay. There we go. So we're getting the text. Now, are we getting... There we go. Floating text. So now we say 3D, hey, this is some text. So it's not actually triggering it to come back, because that's what we were doing with this. So we were changing the actual modal state. So how do we handle that now? I guess I can move the modal state up. And we'll do this. And so now what I can do is I can pass these down as props. I'm going to kind of just be cheeky since I'm passing a whole bunch of stuff down here. We'll use shorthand properties and spread those properties into the props. So now I don't actually need this here anymore, but I do need these. So now these are all coming in as props, and the state is not in this text layer, it's actually held in the layer above it. In the component above it. So now, when we change the state, it should trigger both the modal and the actual text value will change. The component will then like a re-trigger basically that loop. Loved all these commands. Hey, and it seemed like it was actually pretty well centered now. So if we now go back to, we don't really care about the text message anymore, but now if we go back to this bounding box, wrong bounding box, this bounding box. The 0, 0, it comes in, it's going to readjust it. It's still not doing it fast enough though. So we could do, we're changing the scale and the position off of uSpring. On REST, it's changing the modal state, or the model state, I guess. So it comes in, it hits the end of its transition, and it switches the model state to true, and then it transitions it back out. It feels really funky to try to put it in the use frame, doesn't it? We almost want this bounding box size thing to happen before the use spring is triggered. Is there something that we can use to do that? use Spring. So this starts, if it's set to, if we have reset, it starts to animate from scratch, from to two. Do we have the reset set? No. So we're only doing reverse. So it'll come in, it'll rest, and then it'll reverse it. Because reverse is set on the Boolean and flip. So that's telling it to run versus not. We don't want it to loop. We have a delay on there already. The from and to need to be an object or an array. Feed it your items and life cycles. Whenever items are added or removed, it'll animate these changes. Oh, interesting. So this might be something, because it's setting items. So we could potentially do something where when we change that item, how should we do this? So you can have multiple springs. Use Spring or pass a function that returns values and update using the API. So we have just a Spring. So we could do, we don't actually need to set it every time. So we could probably, we only care about the size when we're doing a transition. So if we do this and we pass this a function instead, we want to return this object still. But prior to that, we want to calculate the bounding box. Did I get too many? Yes, I did. There we go. So this will trigger it getting the size prior to the transition, I believe. No, it's not even animating out. Start and stop. So if we have styles and API.start. Okay, so it won't cause a render. So, handling updates like this is useful for fast occurring updates. You should generally prefer it as it is more powerful. Interesting. So we have use spring ref. Interesting. Okay. I think we need to do something of that sort. So yes. I think we want to play around with that a little bit. Trying to figure out how to get this updated position prior to the transition happening. So we've got why did you get rid of set? The old API looked something like this. Okay. So there is okay, so they're saying, well, if you want to still try to use that type of API, as the reset prop is true. Previously, the from prop would not affect the animation unless reset true. So now there is use spring ref. So the use spring ref would give us access to this. I don't know that that's what we want. Render props. And I think we kind of want to stick with the hook. I don't know that it's it didn't seem like the render props is something that we wanted to use for this React 3 fiber. The smallest bounce round frequency. So we can play around with some of the spring physics. What do you need, kitty? Come on. This cat is very needy right now. Yeah, cat ASMR on here. Yeah, change my category. Okay, so and update using the API. I don't know that we really any property that will be combined into two. So there isn't a wait to interesting. So we can potentially await something happening when using an async 2. So I wonder if we've got bounding box get size. Is that a promise? Get size. Box 3, I guess. So it's got copy distance equals get center. Interesting. Scratching my couch. Doesn't actually say if it's. I'm presuming that it's not. Presuming that it's not a promise here. Then this is more so just an issue with this being a function. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to do this. This feels ugly, but if it's not a promise or anything, this cat is. So definitely updated it later. Kitty keeps licking my, I got hair all over my face. Hi, yes, I know you're back. She keeps licking my green screen. Was that in the right spot though? It kind of didn't seem bad. So if we do something really long here, if we go, this is a bunch of text. No, it's definitely not. Because we get the command. I mean, it seems like it sets it. But this animation has already fired. So it's like it's getting the bounding box on the old one, maybe? We get a vec3, and it then logs it out. And if we do something really long, we're getting the command, it's setting it. Is that current still? I mean, it's got to be. I think it's setting it, like every time it renders, it's setting it. So it's getting the size. Bounding box. Get size, and it's dumping it. dumping it into there? Where did my three.js go? There we go. Get size. The result will be copied into this vector. So if I don't even put that, because it's running it twice. If we just do this, okay, so we do need to give it something to actually copy it into. Interesting. So it seems like we have to give it get bounding sphere expand equals distance. It's interesting how you have to give it values and then it's copying it into it. So request animation, not gonna like this, but I'm guessing this is going to sort of blow out our console here. But if we do this, that's gonna give us the size. Whoop, bounding box. So now bounding box X, bounding box size Y. If we run two animations, so like, it seems like it's clearly coming in too late. Definitely coming in too late. So it's calculating that when it starts animating. If we bump up that delay, not that I really want to have a 5-second delay on this, it's calculated it and it's not doing anything else. Is it even going to do it? There. So like it's recalculating it. It's just much after this. Like this is only firing when that's only firing when we actually do some animation. Now I'm not sure how this is doing its mounting as such. If we just do this, what is this going to give us? So it's 0, 0, 0. Still we got a big delay on there, don't we? Yep. That's why it's taking so long. It calculates it, move it in, it recalculates it. Um, hmm. We want that bounding box. We need the coordinates to center it. We need it to. I mean, this could very well be based on the scale too. Because what we're doing is we're scaling it up. So we're going from 0 to 1. So like this really only changes once it's all the way scaled up. So if we would chain together like two springs, one that drops it in, scales it to 0, but now has recorded the position. That feels not awesome, but so we can just give it multiple args. We give it multiple args, which then means we can't just grab it out. And what's this use transition look like? Animated transition group. Feed it your items and life cycles, and when our items are added or removed, it'll animate these changes. I kind of feel like this is more what we're looking for. When we adjust items, so when we give it items, I think this is actually more what we're looking for. We want a from, an enter, and a leave. This feels very much like three.js, if anybody's familiar. It's a library that can also do canvas as well as SVG, but it's more for 2D type things, generally, I think. Because what we really want to do is we want to have a starting point, and when it enters, we want it to do a thing, and when it leaves, we want it to do a thing. And we're giving it a handful of items. And what we're doing is we're changing anytime the items change. We're going to try this. We're going to try this, see what it does. If it's not cooperating how we are hoping, then, well, I think regardless, we're going to try this and see what it does. And that is going to be, that's going to be the stream. So hopefully this works, because that would be great. So we need an from, an enter, and a leave. I'm going to drop these in here because we are changing the scale. And I guess we can probably do this too. I might want to play around with that position. And not have it 0, 0, 0, but that should work for now. So now we don't need to worry about reverse. I mean, maybe we can do a delay too. We don't really care about the model state. I don't think. We want it to. Okay, so this is what it's doing is on rest, it's then just like clearing out the value. And we do need to give it a text message. So const I don't know. Do we mutate this then? Twitch. This feels funny, but let's see what it does. So then on rest, we want to basically set this to not to be empty. So we're going to say Twitch message equals this. Twitch message. So is it going to actually animate it out now? It's connected. We want it to leave. So we wanted to give it a value. So every time that value changes, I mean, I guess. We need to get it to like disappear. So we need to. This is basically setting it after. Every time I get a new command, it's going to do that. So it's going to set the Twitch event with a new value every time we do that. I'm not sure if it. If we do a set timeout in here, is it going to work? Do we just reset it at this level then? That feels odd. So we're sending in text message. We're just using it directly. We're not doing anything here. So there's going to be no transitions because it's just set based off of props. So now if we go, if we do a command, it's changing, but it's not doing a transition in and out. It's changing the text. It is getting a new bounding box. But we also wanted to set it back to, can we just overload it like this? Like there's no transition in, which is kind of interesting. From, enter, leave. So if we completely ignore this, we say this is text, this is this, this is this. Are we getting caching? We're getting caching again. Twitch. Text messages there. Oh, here. So now if we change it, it's not changing at all. Like there's no, am I using this use transition incorrectly? Got a lot of tabs open now. We can close you. I'm not worrying about cameras anymore. Field of vision, field of view. I keep saying vision. Okay, so const transitions use transition. So transitions then gives us a function. And that gives us style opacity dot 2. Well, that's weird. Item animated div. So I think we definitely need to do a function, and we can get the any items within there. So I think that's part of what's going on here is we are trying to use scale directly, but now this becomes transition. And I think we need to do something like transition. Transitions takes a function. And from here we can get the scale. So it did come in. So it's coming in. And on rest, it's not doing the rest. Like it's not changing that. Here we go. So on rest, set, toggle. So it's doing a delay of 200. And it's doing, oh, there is a reverse in here. So it's possible we want to do this. So this is actually changing set items. So it's actually changing state when it does that. So I think what we want to do, so this is the text message. So we want to say, let set current message. This feels no. We have set Twitch event. We can then pass this down. We're not using flip anymore. So we can change it every time the every time I get a new event, we can change it. But then we can also have our component change it as well. And we can set this to only trigger every so often. So then what this ends up doing for us is we can say on rest, we can set the Twitch event to nothing. And this should transition it back out, because that's going to change this. Flip is not defined. Fine. Flip is still not defined. Okay. So app 333 or app 33. What is that? Okay, so that's the actual. Oh, okay. We're actually setting the whole Twitch event. Twitch event. Oh, okay. So Twitch event isn't actually a string. It is an object. And this is basically like the default if we don't have anything filled in. So let's just take that out. It should give us nothing. And let's see what it looks like when we just run a command directly. 3D some text. Ooh. So we get a value in that. Are we using this anywhere? No, we're not. Okay. That's probably why it errored out. Okay. That was weird. Okay, so we get an event. We see the vec3. And it's transitioning from this to that. Oh, I've got two froms. What? From, enter, leave. Could that be it? So we are getting, it seems like it's firing them multiple times. Whoa, 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 wrong button. We're setting the Twitch event to nothing, which then sets the text message to nothing, which then basically like triggers a re-render of this. So we get a bounding box of nothing, our value is still nothing, and then it rests. So it's setting it to nothing. It we might be getting a weird raise condition in here too. So we get the bounding box, we send a command, we get the bounding box again. Because that command has triggered the state change, which then gives us a new transition. Let's log out the text message. Come on, save. I'm gonna give this a shot. And if this doesn't helping us out here, then what do I do? That's fine. Oh. I don't know how I got context in there. Okay. So no text message, 000, we reset it. That reset triggers a new update of the text message. Still 0. So we're getting a bit of a loop in there. Because we get the command, we get new text, new bounding box, then we're resetting it. And we're resetting it. Because there's 2 rests that happened. But then that gives us new text. Yeah, so I think we got some weird raise condition stuff going on. Because at rest is firing a whole bunch. So is there a useTransition? So initial from enter update styles. Oh, so there's styles that we're going to do for update, leave, and trail. Keys you only use if you're passing a single item. Expires and sort. Exit before enter. Ensures any items leaving animate out before new item. Okay. I think we do want to exit before enter. I don't know if that's going to fix this issue, but we'll see. So from enter leave. It's just animating out right now. First time base values. Styles applied for entering and updating and leaving. So leave, we want to transition from, this is what we want the leave state to be. And this is what we want update. I mean, we kind of want this to be the same. Styles apply for entering elements and base values. So I'm not sure what the difference is between the initial and this is interesting. We can do an async function. Interesting. So we can do multi-stage transitions through an enter. So we want to start at 0. We're going up to 100, and we're leaving at 0. I'm not sure what this is doing. So we can have an object, a function, or an array. I think we got our from. Our from feels okay. Our enter. Our enter item opacity and height. Oh, okay. We're transitioning to whatever opacity or height it needs to be, and then setting the life to be 100%. And then we clear them all out when it goes out. And in this way, we can get access to those. I'm not sure why you would necessarily need a next here. Okay, the function is allowed to return plain objects, or either an array or a function for multi-stage transitions. So this is returning a function for multi-stage transitions, I'm understanding. Okay. This feels right. So if we have it do this and this, we should be able to do this, which will give us a updated size. It's still just showing up immediately though. I think we're close. This seems to be firing twice. I think because we kind of have a cyclical thing going on here. Because we're setting the Twitch event, which is then updating the text to be nothing, which is then triggering it again. Which is probably fine. So we're giving it updated stuff. That's odd. This feels like the right API that we want to use. And there's also this use trail. Oh, it staggers them. Okay. I don't know that that's what we want. I think this use transition is what we want. We need to play around with it a little bit. This set items is doing this is changing multiple items in an array. We are just changing one. So you can give use transition an item, or you can give it, oh, interesting. So the second arg is the item? Did we just do this thing? Was that the piece that we missed? I think we got the use transition working. That's sweet. I'm actually going to change this to say message instead. I'm going to turn the flow back on. This bounding box still doesn't seem to be doing its thing as I'm hoping it to do. Is it also returning something? Like, I'm fine if I have to assign it. Oop. But if I'm also getting the value back, nope, come on. Sort of a dumb throwaway thing, but so now if we put some really large text in here, it's still adjusted over. So we're getting the text message. We're still getting that back 3. Just do empty. I am going to put the floating text back in there though. I'm curious how this is going to transition in. So it comes in and it stays. Because that's the default. There's basically nothing to like make it go away. It'll just keep flipping back and forth. So that's where the enter before exit would be useful if we don't want these like overlapping like that. Where'd it go now? Oh, I already have it in there. So this will come in, swap. Curious, because the other one is firing right away. I don't like this unrest stuff. I think I might just need to like handle it all by a timer. But I mean, we do need a way to trigger it to switch out. I don't know. I feel like there's probably a better way to do this, but hopefully being wrong on the internet, somebody's going to point me in the right direction. So it works, but we are still not getting it to center well. And that's because this is just not cooperating. I don't think this is actually something that we can await. But I'm just gonna cross my fingers and see what happens. So we gave it a function, which returns another function, which is, I thought what they were doing here. We gave it a function, which returns another function. I don't know if these, I don't know what that's doing. So that function is returning It's returning this basically. So next. Wait. So I think we might need to dig into a little bit more information there. Might not be understanding this. Because we're still getting the bounding box too late. So it's like the bounding box is delayed. Like it's an async API, but we can't await it. I think we're gonna have to pick it up next time. It's a pretty long stream here, so you know, can't complain too much. We got a fair amount of progress done, I guess, in understanding how these cameras are operating and how they've kind of fit into the scenes, as well as how we can apply our transitions and get information about the things in our scene. This bounding box, there's got to be a better way. So maybe we'll figure something out. Async, if anybody has any ideas, I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, maybe I'll find something that we can try out next week. So thanks for stopping by, everybody. See you next time.